Today, on the Specialist Podcast, we talked NFL free agency, recap the ACC tournament and the CLT. We have an interview with Hendrick Motorsports' Donnie Floyd. The NCAA tournament is here. Our bracket challenge is here. And we talk a little merch. Welcome to the Specialist Podcast,
where two former mediocre high school special teamers get together and talk all things sports. Welcome to episode number 9. 2 more episodes until we're on iTunes and Spotify.
iTunes and Spotify, man, they're going to be paying us 10 years, $430 million, like we said. So, I mean, our time just solely on YouTube here is coming to a close. And, you know, we're so thankful for YouTube. But we're also a little annoyed with YouTube, man. They kind of send us strikes for things that we... I mean, like, who do you think they are? Like, $1 million, billion-dollar industry?
Yeah, seriously. The strikes are getting annoying. What also is getting annoying is the fact that our listeners have to be on the YouTube app to listen to us, which we want to give a shout-out to our listeners because without you guys, our podcast would not be possible. Don't know how some of the other podcasts with very low listeners is possible, but that's a different story.
J&J podcast.
Oh, okay. Let's get into...
a different billion-dollar industry.
Which is?
The
NFL.
Okay, we did not have to do that
No,
together.
I'm so sorry.
But no, capping things off, man, free agency was ablaze this past week. Trades, free agency, everything. Kicked off with that OBJ trade to Cleveland. The Giants sent Odell over there for Jabril Peppers, a first and a third round pick. What do you think about that trade? Do you think the Browns won?
I do think the Browns won.
Why?
Just how good Odell Beckham Jr. is, and just another... So, the defenses who played the Browns towards the end of the season were all focused on Jarvis Landry. Now, that's going to open things up for Landry or OBJ, depending on whichever star corner for the other team goes where. But I think it's great for the Browns. But let me talk about the Browns for a second. They will not win the AFC North. The Steelers are going to win the AFC North again. They're going to go to the playoffs. I expect the Steelers to have a great year.
That's absolutely just completely ignorant, Matt. The Browns are not just legitimate AFC North contenders. They're AFC championship contenders. When you look at the AFC North, I think the Browns and the Ravens are leaps ahead of the Steelers. I mean, you lost Bell, you lost Brown. Big Ben is not getting any younger.
We pretty much lost Bell. We did lose Bell last year, and we were fine. James Conner did just as good as Bell's been doing the past couple of seasons. And the Brown distraction going away, we've got Juju, who's, in my opinion, top 5 wide receivers in the NFL.
You said you did just fine. What was
in the running back situation? Would you not agree?
Yeah, but how'd the team do?
That's a fair point.
And now they lost their best offensive weapon.
Distractions. I think that's the reason. The Steelers had the best offensive line in the NFL. Their defense wasn't too bad. It's getting better each year. I just think that without these 2 distractions on the team, the Steelers are going to do just fine. I think they're going to go 12-4 and win the AFC North and make it to the AFC Championship game. Hopefully the Super Bowl, because we need to win one. We haven't won one since Arizona.
That's a very, very interesting take. But no, back to the Browns and OBJ. Like I said, I genuinely think they're going to be AFC Championship contenders. Baker now has a supporting cast of Nick Chubb, who was 4 yards away from being an 1,000-yard rusher while only starting 9 games. He averaged over 5 yards a carry. On the outside, he's got Landry, David Njoku, and now OBJ. A lot of people say this thing could go wrong because Odell and Baker could clash heads. I think Baker's going to be just fine having OBJ to throw to.
We'll see. Talking about someone throwing the football, we're going to talk a little Fitzmagic and Tannehill. So, Ryan Tannehill, a sorry Dolphins quarterback, headed to the Titans. And then Ryan Fitzpatrick from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, headed down a little more south to the Dolphins. So that's going to eliminate the Jameis Fitz competition. And then that's going to start a little Mariota Tannehill competition up in Tennessee. Coleman, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you got to wonder, how hot is Marcus's seat? Like, this is definitely a sign. And yeah, he was stellar at Oregon. Everyone wants to say make excuses for him because he's a really good guy. But the man's starting record is 27-28 in a very average AFC South. Yes, the Colts are now back. Yes, Houston is there. Yes, the Jags had one good year. But, I mean, that's 1 year from each of the three teams.
Yeah, the AFC, what is it, the South? Is that
Yeah,
what
the
AFC
AFC
South is the worst division in the AFC.
Exactly.
So I 100% agree with what you're saying.
He's also thrown 69 touchdowns to 42 picks. That's 1.6 interceptions per 2 touchdowns. That's an awful ratio. I hope he wins, but man, it's weird. It's very odd.
So do you think the situation down in Miami, getting rid of Tannehill and then getting another average quarterback, I know Fitzmagic, we'll still call him that, was very hot at the beginning of the season with Tampa, and then kind of slowly went so downhill, he got benched, where it was Jameis was back in the game. So do you think that's an upgrade or a downgrade for Miami, as they've had quarterback struggles for
I don't know, because Tannehill can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
But I think Fitzmagic is the perfect example of the high caliber backup quarterback who's really just not that good. A guy like Sam Bradford, he'll come in and have one really good year when he needs to, and then he'll go somewhere and get a huge paycheck because somebody wants him to be their guy, and then he'll just be bad. And then his next opportunity, he'll do great, and then he'll be bad. I hope he does well. I mean, I think they'll be average, but I don't see anything stellar coming out of Miami.
Yeah, 100%. Moving away from the AFC South, we'll talk a little AFC West. Kansas City Chiefs acquired defensive back Tyrann Mathieu, which is a big acquisition, whatever. We go to CP, graduated from Metrolina. That's all we need to tell you guys.
Don't blame that on me. That was you.
That was me. I'm just saying,
yeah.
Any grammar issues, that's education. Besides the point, the Chiefs, I think, are going downhill.
Why?
Tyreek Hill.
Oh, wait, but when you speak of the Chiefs, 1 second. Let's not forget that the Browns, after 8 games, are going to have Kareem Hunt.
Oh, yeah.
Let's not forget that.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Browns also have a lot of running backs on the hot seat. Not hot seat for playing time, you could say. They've got Duke Johnson.
They don't care, though. They want to win.
No, they don't care. Exactly.
Okay, sorry. So back to the Chiefs.
But the Chiefs, losing Kareem last year midway, and then Tyreek Hill, all battery accusations, immediately released. Something's going on down in Kansas City.
I think they'll be fine.
Where do you see Kansas City ending up next year?
I see the AFC coming down to 4 teams: Indianapolis, New England, Cleveland, and Kansas City. You give me that look when I said Indianapolis, but like I said earlier in the pod, our first episode when we debated Mahomes versus Luck, it's the beginning of a 10-year dynasty. No, I think it's a huge pickup for them. Their secondary was so bad last year. It's a sign that Tyrann Mathieu wants a ring. Yeah, he got money, but he could have gotten paid a lot more, say he went somewhere else. So I don't know about them going downhill. I think they'll be fine as long as Mahomes is there, because Damian Williams, Spencer Ware, they showed they can replace Kareem. And they have good receivers, Sammy Watkins, Chris Conley. I'm sure Tyreek Hill will be back. I'm not worried about that. But no, that's a huge pickup for them. I hate it as I pull for the Texans that he left, but congrats to him, because their secondary just went from awful to, okay, now we gotta beware.
So after that, you've got the Jets making some moves. They acquired Ravens linebacker C.J. Mosley and Steelers, sit down, I don't want to make a bunch of money in 2018, Le'Veon Bell. The Jets are still going to suck, in my opinion. There's too much good competition in the AFC, especially with all these moves by the Raiders, which we'll talk about them in a second, the Browns. All the AFC teams that you said were contenders. I think the Jets are going to have another losing season. Le'Veon's definitely going to help them from where they were this past season, but I just don't see C.J. Mosley and Le'Veon Bell taking the Jets to the playoffs anytime soon.
Well, the Jets are going to be good defensively. They've got Mosley, who's a 4-time Pro Bowler. He has less than 10 missed tackles in each of the last 2 seasons, and he's the only player other than Luke Kuechly to record 500 tackles, 8 sacks, and 8 picks since 2014. So he's going to be controlling the front while Jamal Adams is controlling the backside. So I think they're going to be good defensively, but offensively, obviously Bell's a huge pickup, unbelievable running back, unbelievable receiver. But this ain't going to be Pittsburgh anymore. The O-line in Pittsburgh is one of, if not the best O-line.
Amen.
To end the season last year, the Jets were ranked 25th by Pro Football Focus out of 32 teams in their offensive line. They have yet to make one free agent signing on the offensive line. They've gone to receiver, DB, D-line. And so, yes, Sam Darnold will be a year better, and we'll have Bell. But who's going to protect these guys? I mean, they're going to have to – good pickup, obviously, but unless they hit a home run O-lineman draft, like they just get steal after steal after steal, and these guys are just like hidden gems, I don't know. It could be successful in the long run, but, man, short term, not a chance. That next year is going to be bad. I feel bad for Darnold and Bell.
I agree with that. The third pick they have this year in the 2019 NFL Draft, do you think they should go for an offensive lineman?
I mean, they could go for a guy like Jonah Williams out of Bama, but I feel like that's reaching.
Yeah,
and I don't.
He's not the third pick, is what you're saying.
He's not the third best player. No, I feel like with the D linemen, they could have Mosley in linebacker, Jamal Adams on the third level. If they can get a guy like Quinnen Williams or Cleveland Farrell or Nick Bosa, say he somehow slips to 3, I don't think they could pass up that opportunity. So I don't know. It should be interesting.
Yeah, so last AFC move we'll talk about, or last NFL move we'll talk about, Antonio Brown to the Raiders. What do you think about this situation? AB going with the struggling Derek Carr and the struggling Raiders with Gruden. But what do you think is going to happen to the Raiders this coming season?
I literally have no idea what's going to happen here. Everyone acts like Derek Carr finally has what he needs. I feel like a lot of people want him to succeed.
Good guy, but
he's had Amari Cooper, and Cooper sucked in Oakland. But then when he gets to a team that has a quarterback, or at least what we think is a quarterback, I mean, he was
better of a quarterback in the Oakland situation.
Unstoppable. I mean, maybe the Cooper thing was a fluke, but I really don't think this will be a success. I think it'll be far more of a problem. I think Derek Carr will hone in on Antonio Brown. Going to make more mistakes. I don't think it's going to be a good relationship.
Yeah, I agree with that. I said Raiders at best will 9-7.
Oh, I don't see them having a winning record.
Yeah, I don't either. That's why I said
when they traded away Khalil Mack, I realized what this organization was.
What is Gruden doing? He should be back on Monday Night Football. Thank God Jason Witten's going back to Dallas because that wasn't working out either. But anyways, the Raiders definitely will not make the playoffs. Just another.
They're in a tough.
That made a good move that won't have a good season.
They're in a tough division.
They are.
Garoppolo's coming back.
So what do you think is the toughest division in the AFC?
I would be hard pressed not to say
right now.
I would say, dude, you got.
It's hard.
No, I would say
AFC North for sure. The Steelers.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Browns, Ravens.
No, I'd say
Patriots.
I can't think of what
You can't say the Patriots.
The region,
the West, South.
The division is, but I mean,
whose team? Who's in it?
The
Are you talking
49ers.
Oh, that's NFC.
Yeah, I mean, who is? Oh, the 49ers are NFC. Yeah. Sorry, I'm thinking NFC. Okay. Sorry.
So you think the AFC North is the best? Steelers, Browns, Ravens. I mean, it's got to be 3 potential playoff teams for this.
In your mind, 3. I see 2. We just aren't on the same page on the Steelers.
Okay.
I mean, I know you're a fan of them, and I gotta understand your illogical bias, but.
Oh wow.
I see the Browns and the Ravens as the 2 contenders.
All right, well, that's enough NFL talk because we've got bigger things to talk about, and that is March Madness. Coleman and I both had the privilege of going to the ACC tournament. We were at most of the sessions.
Best time of the year, man.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it was awesome for it to be in our hometown.
Yeah, all-star game and ACC tournament.
So keep the ACC tournament in Charlotte, at least in North Carolina. I wouldn't mind it being in Greensboro. Unfortunately, I don't see that being the case in the coming years. I think next year is Greensboro. Then I think they're doing like Washington, D.C. and
back
Brooklyn,
to Brooklyn, stuff
dumb.
like that, yeah.
So anyways, we'll start off with the quarterfinals, semifinals, finals. We're not going to do all the games, but UVA versus NC State, it was very close in the first half, but then UVA pulled away big time in the second half, outscoring NC State 49-27.
Yeah, it was a dominant second half for UVA. They shot lights out from the field, man, 52%, 47% from 3. I do have a quick jab at NC State. Man, I was at the Clemson-NC State game, and That was some awful officiating, and it should have been Clemson, Virginia, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm a Clemson fan, but man, that sucked. But no, Virginia showed up. It was their first game back in Charlotte since losing to
UMBC.
the UMBC Retrievers.
Terriers or something. Is it? Yeah, you're right.
The Retrievers,
right.
yeah. And they won, so congrats to them there. But yeah, just a poor showing for NC State. And if they would have won, they would have been in the tournament. But they are NIT bound.
Talk about a good showing in the ACC tournament. Florida State Seminoles surprised all of us. We definitely thought the championship was going to consist of either Carolina, Duke, or UVA, but no, it was FSU. We'll get to the championship in a little bit. FSU versus Virginia Tech. Back and forth, back and forth. Terrence Mann hit the game winner. But the most impressive stat line, in my opinion, 10 people on the Seminoles were on the scoreboard. Normally it's anywhere between 6 to 9. We got 10.
Leonard Hamilton's one of the most underrated coaches in college basketball. In
Yep.
the first half of that championship game against Duke, he had played 11 players. That's insane. But yeah, heck of a game. Each team shoots extremely well. Terrence Mann, like you said, with the acrobatic game winner. FSU is a very, very dangerous team. Virginia Tech, Justin Robinson is back. I see each of these teams being able to reach the Sweet 16 or Elite 8 or further. I see Florida State having the ability to go further than Virginia Tech. But
I agree.
Great game, and each of these teams has a bright future in this tournament.
Yeah, talk about a bright future in the tournament. UNC versus Louisville. That was their quarterfinal game. The Heels stayed in control the whole game. Luke May and Kobe White both had 19.
Yeah, really balanced attack by the Heels. Four starters cracked double digits. While it wasn't necessarily a blowout, it wasn't a blowout, but
Right.
you just knew by watching UNC controlled the whole game, and it set up for their semifinal matchup against who? Following up the next game is Duke.
Yeah, that's right. I was sleeping there for a second. I'm sorry, viewers.
No worries.
Yeah, so Duke versus Syracuse. Both teams I really like to have success in the tournament. I think Syracuse gets super dangerous. Obviously, everyone knows Zion, probably the best player in college basketball. Double-double, 29 and 14. However, Syracuse's Frank Howard had 28 points. Duke was in control, but Cuse was never really too far behind despite the final score.
Yeah, man. Zion was unreal in his return. No rust, no rattle. Just a man who let those muscles roar. Like you said, 29 and 14. He went 13 of 13 from the field. He also had 5 blocks. In a grown man's league, which is the ACC, Zion is like Thanos. I mean, he's literally unstoppable. But, yeah, Duke moved on to the semis. But next up, UVA FSU, the biggest shock of the tournament in my eyes.
Yeah, FSU was in control the whole game. They shot 57% from the field. Another team contribution. 6 guys had at least 9 or more points. But I've talked to some people about this, and a lot of people disagree with me, but I really think Leonard Hamilton is one of the best coaches in the AFC.
AFC? In the AFC?
Did I just say AFC?
Yeah. Once again.
ACC.
Oh,
but
man.
I love Chris Kumaji, the 7'4" big man. I think it is absolutely ridiculous. He starts, then almost immediately comes out. I mean, he had a huge impact on that game, especially. He did play a lot more than the final, but I mean, Jack Salt wasn't going anywhere with Chris Kumaji in the game.
Well, their sixth man, who's their other big man, he's crucial to their team. He would start most places. But no, I don't know what it is about Virginia, but man, postseason ball just continues to haunt them. Last year, obviously, in the Spectrum Center, they lost to UMBC. This year, they lose to a Florida State team that's very good, but they should definitely beat. I've got a question for you. Obviously, the term Clemsoning is no longer a phrase, but is Virginiaing now the phrase?
We can call it the Specialist Podcast will start.
Cavaliering.
Cavaliering.
Virginiaing just sounds weird.
Cavaliering will become a phrase started by the Specialist Podcast if Virginia does not reach the Elite Eight.
Dude, I mean, just look at what they've done since Tony Bennett's been there. Unbelievable. And then they just choke. And it's not like they're losing to teams that are better than them in postseason. They're losing games they should win. I mean, I don't know. Tony Bennett's a hell of a coach. They are an unbelievable team year in and year out, offensively, defensively. But I just don't know what it is, man. Something about the postseason just continues to be a curse on them. But like you said, man, FSU's size, athleticism, and consistency were huge. FSU shot 56% from the field, and UVA shot 20% from three. That's an awful combo for the Cavs, and that's why Duke FSU was our championship.
Yep. UNC versus Duke, though, the semifinal right before FSU.
Sorry, I got a little excited.
Lost to Duke, no worries. We can't forget this one, though. This is a fan favorite matchup. The game we all wanted lived up to his hype. Zion had a double-double, and it was so hard for anyone to stop him.
Man, round 3 was, like you said, everything we could have asked for. Best rivalry in college basketball, and Zion's first full go at it. In Charlotte, North Carolina, where Duke and UNC fans dominate the region. It was a heck of a back-and-forth game down to the wire, but Zion hit what would be the game-winning shot. Man, the way he missed that and then got that rebound to put it back up and give them the lead, which was the final score. Unbelievable, 31-11. But UNC is a very good basketball team. They, at the beginning of the year, I didn't think they were all that good, but as the year has gone on, they have become more and more scary.
They may or may not be my pick to win it all.
I could see them winning it all. I mean, I could 1,000% see it all. But Duke FSU championship.
Yeah. So specialists were there. We don't miss the big games when they roll around in our city. Tied first half, very close. Chris Kamaji only had 9 minutes. Again, I talked about him, his amazing performance against UVA despite the small minutes. He only had 9 minutes. I think that's a disgrace. Come on, Coach Hamilton. Yep. Yeah, you've got a lot of good bench, but you got to play Chris more. Tournament MVP Zion shined with 21 points. FSU free throw shooting was outstanding. It will totally help them come tourney time. I expect them to stay hot. Yeah, they lost to Duke. Everyone thought they were going to lose to Duke, but I don't think it was anything they should be embarrassed by.
No.
They've been very consistent this whole tournament. Yes, the Virginia Tech game was close, but I really like FSU to do some nice work here in this coming tournament.
Yeah, FSU just kind of had an off game, and part of that's due to
off second half.
Yeah, due to Duke's defense, but Duke was capitalizing. But I think the most impressive thing to me was the balanced attack. Zion had 21, Trey Jones had 18, Barrett had 17. Congrats to the Devils and another ACC championship under the belt of Coach K.
Profit Advisory Group is a full-service telecom and technology solution partner that can help you with any of your telecom needs. Whether you need to cut costs, buy new service, or change away from your current carrier. The greatest thing is they get paid by the carriers, so there is never any cost to you. Check out their website after you're done checking out the specialists.
We are live with Donnie Floyd, the full-time chaplain at Hendrick Motorsports through Motor Racing Outreach, an ordained minister with Chaplain Fellowship Ministries International, a Gulf War vet, worked as a police officer, and also worked as a NASCAR race team crew member for Hendrick Motorsports. Donnie, it is awesome to have you on today.
Well, thanks for having me.
So real quick, I want to talk right now. You're a full-time chaplain at HMS. What is Motor Racing Outreach?
So Motor Racing Outreach, which started 30 years ago by a man named Max Helton, who felt the need to bring the gospel to the racing community. And so through the beginning of that stage, he started a ministry of going to the racetrack, being around the drivers and the crew, going to the race shops, just kind of being a, as you say, a casual missionary per se in the field, in the culture of racing. Mm-hmm. And that was the beginning of Motor Racing Outreach.
Okay.
So starting off with the beginning, we'll talk about your career as a member in the Air Force. That was kind of the first job, you could say, you took growing up. What age did you join the Air Force?
So I joined the Air Force in the 11th grade, delayed enlistment. So I was guaranteed when I graduated high school that I would leave and go off into the Air Force.
What was it that made you want to join the Air Force?
You know, I don't know. I think it was just I enjoyed the uniform. I felt like I've been called to serve. I had this something about me that I knew I wanted to be in some type of career field that served, being firemen, police, EMS, and I'd been swaying towards law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And for me, instead of going off to college and taking a degree in criminal justice, I decided, well, they do the same thing in the military, so I could learn there, go to school there, and then get out down the road and then go in the civilian side. So I decided to pursue that in the military and start off there.
Okay. And also, you were in the Gulf War, but in your time in the Air Force, what were some of the places that you got to go see, and what were some of the memories that were made in that time that'll never leave?
Well, probably the biggest memory is your drill instructors. You never forget them.
Yeah.
But the people you meet, it's one of the only organizations I believe in the world where you can take people from all races, cultures, rich, poor, black, white, and bring them together. Right. They don't know each other. They have their own ideas of life and what they think about with culture, and you put them all together, and at the end of a bunch of training, they'll die for one another. Right. So you make a lot of great friends, people that normally you probably wouldn't hang out with, but you were forced to be together. And so I'll remember that, the great friends I made, and of course the many deployments. I lived in South Korea for 2 years, Saudi Arabia during the Gulf War, Puerto Rico, and of course I lived in New York, my first duty station, Plattsburgh. That should be called Canada, really not New York. Very cold. I lived in California, upstate California, Charleston. So you get to travel a lot. So that's one of the great benefits of being in the military, is you get to see much of the world.
I know not necessarily it's always a fun time because you're there to protect and serve the country, but of all the places that you did get to live in for a period of time, what was your favorite place to be at?
Probably, if I could go back, and it'd probably be South Korea.
Why?
I think the unique thing about that is you take a southern boy from Charlotte, North Carolina, who's never been anywhere, and at 19, 20, you dump him off in South Korea in the late 80s, 90s, early 90s, and a complete culture shock. Mm-hmm. But with that culture shock is, wow, there's more to life. There's more out here in this world than just where I'm from. Mm-hmm. And seeing the culture and the people, and if anything, it made me appreciate America. Right. South Korea is a great country. They're very advanced. But it's very different. Mm-hmm. There's a war climate there that we don't have here in America. So probably South Korea. I really enjoyed my time there.
So after the military, you decided to go back to your original plan, law enforcement. After working in law enforcement for 5 years, what brought you to Hendrick Motorsports and the NASCAR field? Because it's such a different job from the military and law enforcement. It's just completely, you could say, random.
Yeah, very random. So I have a twin brother, and he pursued professional racing, and he was at Hendrick Motorsports. Okay. And growing up in Charlotte, obviously this is the hub of NASCAR, we both loved racing. My dad would take us to the speedway, to the races, and so we grew up really loving it. We worked on cars. We enjoyed cars. We enjoyed everything about that sport. Well, my brother pursued it as a vocation, and I just thought there's no way. I was pretty plugged into law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And so one day, randomly, while I was at my desk at work, he called me and asked me what I thought about getting into professional racing. And I actually laughed at him, like, is this a joke? And he was actually telling me that they were looking for someone to hire at Hendrick Motorsports with no experience. And they wanted to bring them in and train them up their way on a team. And he just felt like, speaking with the crew chief, they were looking for someone that was a little bit more mature, mm-hmm. kind of grounded, would show up on work, at work on time. And so I went and interviewed with the crew chief, and he gave me 30 days to think about it. And for me, I was married at the time, and law enforcement doesn't pay the greatest. This was going to give me the opportunity to be able, me and my wife, to have a child and possibly her not work full time, but be at home. So it was kind of this: if a pro team called you that you loved and said, "Hey, you want to come play with us?" It was kind of a win-win. And my chief of police at the time said, "Hey, I don't want you to leave, but if you don't like it, it don't work out, I'll hire you back." So it was kind of a win-win.
Right.
So I just kind of, I carried the gun to work for 11 years of my life, and I walked away from all of it and went and watched, and worked on race cars. So
That's pretty exciting. So, in your time, you were a part of 31 wins, received 7 championship rings, and worked with guys like Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Chase Elliott, Casey Kane, and the list goes on. What was it like working with those guys and winning those 7 championship rings?
Well, at first, you're a little taken aback by it when you're new, and you get in the sport and you're with all these people that have been doing it since they were young. And here I was, and a former police officer, stepping into their world. It took some adjusting, especially the first year, changing over to working with your hands, working on race cars, learning a lot. So, the first time, my first team was with Terry Labonte. And so the first time you see him, he's like a superstar.
Yeah.
So that's the way you see him. And that's who you saw on TV growing up. And then there's Jeff Gordon and all these people. And then finally reality hits you that, like, I'm on their team.
Yeah.
And there's a part where eventually the novelty of that wears off. And you realize you're there to do a job. They're there to do their job. And it's a team atmosphere. And you become part of the culture. And so it was fun getting to know them. And there's a lot of, when you're at the track and you're walking and you're wearing Jeff Gordon's team gear, that attention's drawn to you, but it just shows you how big the sport is and how much the fans love their team and their driver, and you get to be a part of that. So it was a great blessing.
So you won so many accolades, but what was your exact role with the team? I know you worked with those awesome drivers that we listed earlier, but what was your role with the team?
So my job was I was part of the paint and body shop, and then when I started, we were smaller single car teams. Now they're all one big team, 4 teams working together as one. And my part was doing the painting, the bondo, preparing the cars for templates, for tech inspection to make sure they follow the rules, working with some of the aero things they do on the bodies of the car, making sure they're painted the way the sponsor wants them to be. And then I was a decal wrap specialist. So basically I, and along with the other people that I work with, put the image on the car so that when you see the car on Sunday, you don't see the transmission, you don't see the rear end housing, you see that paint job. And so our job was to put that image on the car to please the sponsors, kind of gives the team the identity. And so that's what I started out doing, and I did that for the whole 17 and a half years while I was on the teams.
Well, after 17 and a half seasons, you moved on to become the chaplain at Hendrick Motorsports through Motor Racing Outreach. But your life before then wasn't always centered around God, as you share on your website. So was there a moment in your life or an event that really took place that turned you from someone who believed in heaven to hell to a man now who's on fire for the Lord?
Yeah, I would say in 2004, I'd been on the teams at that point 5 years, 6 years. And we had a team plane at Hendrick Motorsports. It's pretty well known that our team plane crashed in Virginia and killed all 10 on board. Wow. One of the people on that plane was a man named John Hendrick, who is Rick Hendrick's brother. And he was a kind of a mentor of mine. He actually spoke and taught at a company Bible study every week at Hendrick Motorsports that was available to employees to come down, and they'd get a free meal. And usually John Hendrick would lead, the president of the company would lead the Bible study. Wow. And so I grew up obviously in church, and I'm a pastor's kid's kid. So my grandfather was a pastor, and so I gave my life to Christ at camp at the age of 14, and went through much of my career in the military and, of course, law enforcement, trying to be who God called me to be, with a lot of failure in there. But in 2004, when that plane hit that mountain, that's the first time people close to me really close to me outside of grandparents, their life was taken, as we would like to say, premature, a little too soon. And not only that, many of them well-known, Hendrick family, Randy Dorton, the head engine builder. I had traveled with him on the road. And so it was very impactful and a great reminder of how short life is. And at that moment, for me, it was the turning point as I watched my fellow teammates and those around me respond to that, or not know how to respond to that, to go, wait a minute, I believe God's doing something here. And so for me, it was a time to get back to that word I'd been listening to my whole life and say, what does God say about this? Because he has a lot to say about death. And so it kind of propelled me to start being there for people, to try to answer the hard questions. And so for me, that was what lit the fire. I tried to run from it for a while, but God wouldn't let me. And so it was when I really felt the call that he was calling me into some kind of ministry. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but that's where it kind of started.
Wow.
So after that incident, you, like you said, it was kind of like a fire was being lit under you. You worked on cars, but how did you receive the role as a full-time chaplain? And what has that job been like for you? Because I know you're still serving as the full-time chaplain for Hendrick Motorsports.
So what we did is after that, we were concerned that our Bible study was going to be canceled after that. And, of course, it was not. We brought in a chaplain from Motor Racing Outreach by the name of Steve Hudson, who would lead us weekly, and we would carry on. And I just felt the need to help him, serve him. He would come in once a week. He was also involved in Supercross and motocross, so he wasn't there every day. And so I would help him in any way I could. But also, there was the point where I knew I needed to get it back into the books. And when the Bible calls us to be a living sacrifice, to deny ourselves, much of that is walking in obedience to God, who God's called us to be. And in that process, I knew that if I want to lead people in that, well, I'm going to have some better knowledge to help them understand what that looks like. So for like 4 years, as I worked on the race teams, I started going to school and studying and buying books and reading everything I could about my faith, about the gospel, about a biblical worldview, apologetics, you name it. And I just really dug in for about 4 years. And then I felt the more I would do that, the more opportunities would present themselves for me to serve. And I had a platform. Wow. I was a crew guy at Hendrick Motorsports, and a lot of people, they were kind of driven towards that. And so with that, I continued to just serve and help, and it opened doors. And the more it opened doors, the more it was recognized from the leadership.
So tell us about your ministry that you have now. It's Black and White, and what you do with that, and kind of just.
So when I started that, the more you get out of the church and into the world and you talk to people, you find out there's a lot of things they don't understand about Christianity, about a biblical worldview. There's a lot of people that are confused. They're confused by denominations. They're confused by us, sometimes, believers. They're confused. And much of the confusion that we deal with, I felt like we needed to just make it simple.
Right.
Let's make it black and white. Let's don't make many of our petty arguments that we have in the church. There's so many people that are turned off by that. And we know that God calls us to obedience and to obey his word, but there's a lot of things that if you didn't grow up in the church like me, and you may not know. And so we have to make it simple. And I felt like when I opened my Bible one day, the pages were black and white, and it is pretty simple, the gospel. There's a lot in the Bible that's confusing and hard to understand, but that part, the story of the gospel, is black and white. And I felt like, hey, let's just make this black and white. And I just came up with that name and somehow built a website. And, I'm not a website builder, and it took forever. And I don't even still think it's that great. But I wanted to have an information site that when I speak to people and that we are able to move forward, and I walk away that, hey, go to my website, and there's a few things on there that are the kind of the nut and bolts of Christianity that I believe you can learn quickly about who God is, how he sent his son to save us, and what the church is, what is sin, different things, what is the Bible, and just the black and white of, hey, just get a core understanding of the Christian faith. So that's how I came up with the blackandwhite.org.
Wow. Well, Donnie, it has been really awesome having you on. For our listeners, social media, how can they find you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or any of those pages? So
on Facebook, I'm Donnie Ray Floyd. Instagram, D Floyd MRO. That would be it. That's all I'm on.
Awesome.
I do have one more thing You're related to Will Greer, is that correct?
So I am, yes, kind of, yes.
Because I know on your Instagram it's a lot of West Virginia. Tell us a little bit about that.
So my twin brother is married to Will's mother, Elizabeth. She's my sister-in-law. So my brother met her when they were all small, a lot younger, and so we grew up watching Will throw footballs and as a kid, and he grew up to be he's a sharp young man, and his dad much involved in his career as well. And so I guess he would be my step nephew, if that's the legal way to say that. But good kid, and we're excited for him here coming up in the next month or two.
So are you a West Virginia fan, or are you just a Will fan?
So I'm wherever Will goes fan.
Okay. So you were a Florida fan at one time.
That's right.
Okay.
So, and I never knew what that would look like until you have someone that's close to you that it's like, what do you do? Like, we don't know where he's going down the NFL. So,
yeah, right. True.
I might end up being who knows what fan.
Who's your least favorite NFL team?
Least favorite?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know if I have one,
Are you a Panthers fan?
I'm
your team?
Yeah, I'm a Panthers fan. I'm from Charlotte, so I got to pull for the Panthers, but I don't know where he's going to get drafted. I may have to have two teams.
As long as he doesn't go to the Patriots, we'll be all right.
Yeah, we'll see.
But actually, one more question that one of our followers asked us to ask you. I have no idea what this is in reference to, and you may not even know what he's talking about. But he told us to specifically ask you about Bobo.
Bobo.
Do you know anything about Bobo?
I saw that.
You saw it, yeah.
One of our
Bobo. Yes, Glenn Bobo?
I guess.
So if he's talking about Glenn Bobo, so myself and Bobo worked together for a very long time, from 2000, probably till he retired in 16. Legend in the sport, paint and body guy, worked for Bobby Allison, Darrell Waltrip.
Wow.
True paint and body guy for 30 plus years, 35 plus years. I mean, used to be a tire changer for Bobby Allison, and probably one of the hardest workers I've ever worked with. But if that's the Bobo they're talking about, but now his son Josh works at Hendrick Motorsports now, and he's Josh Bobo.
Well,
so he's doing the same thing Dad did. So
okay.
they're both amazing. One's following in his dad's footsteps, and great workers, hard workers, and Glenn Bobo, man, he should be in like a team members Hall of Fame.
Well,
there you have it. Whoever asked that question on our Instagram,
we hope we covered it for you. But Donnie, we really do appreciate you coming on. It's really awesome just to kind of get to talk to you a little bit and learn more about you and your testimony.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Mark D. Gott has been a proud sponsor of local high school athletics for many years. Call Mark D. Gott, attorney at law, for all your legal needs. If Mark D. Gott does not handle your particular need, he will gladly refer you to someone who does. Call Mark D. Gott, attorney at law, at 704-377-5050. That is 704-377-5050. Well, y'all, so definitely go give Donnie Floyd a follow. It was awesome to get to meet him and pick his brain a little bit more. He's been very successful, but he's had an unbelievable life, and it's awesome to see how he's turned his struggles into successes, whether that's in racing or in his life, in his walk with God. But, man, the most exciting time of the year, March Madness. Yesterday, seeds came out, selection show. Overall number 1 seed, Duke. Then, the other 3 ones, UNC, Virginia, and Gonzaga. 3 ACC teams capping off the 4 1 seeds. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah. Well, first, I want to know what you thought about the committee's decision to do the 3 number 1 seeds being in the ACC. I thought it was a great decision. What do you think?
I think it's a great decision, but I think if they're going to make that statement, okay, and I know it's going to sound crazy coming from a Clemson fan, but if you're going to tell me that 3 teams, or the 3 number 1 seeds are the top 3 teams, and they're all in the same conference, and you have NC State and Clemson, who both go at least 500 in their conference, they have a better net ranking, which we thought all year was going to be some highly used component. I think you've got to put them in, because you're telling me that the 3 number 1 seeds are from the ACC, but the ACC doesn't have the most teams in the tournament. Just a little weird to me. I definitely think they're the 3 of the top 4 teams, but whatever.
Yeah, I agree with that. If it was only 2, I could see how NC State and Clemson. Now, I know you're a Clemson fan, so I can see why you. I just don't think Clemson at all deserves to be in. But I'm not saying NC State deserves to be in, but I was surprised when I saw they weren't. However, I'm very glad Belmont, who was really on the bubble this whole past couple of weeks, I'm very glad they got in, because I really think that they could do some damage after they beat Temple tomorrow night.
Man, some of the local teams, Wofford is a 7 seed?
North Carolina Central, I bet you guys have never heard of that school.
North Carolina Central, the boys from Buffalo are like a 4 seed, maybe something like that. No, I don't have a problem with the committee. Here's what I'll say about the bubble, and I heard it on TV yesterday, and I couldn't agree more. If you put yourself in the position to be on the bubble, then you shouldn't complain because you didn't take care of the business you had to do. So obviously I'm not complaining, but I'm just saying it's weird how they went with 3 1 seeds.
You're just saying you're not complaining because you agree with that. You're just saying the way they selected doesn't really correlate with the other mid teams in the ACC.
Exactly. Because if you're never mind. But anyways, Matt, I want to hear some dark horses you got. I know we gave a few last episode, but now that we have the bracket here, I want to hear what you got.
Yeah, so a couple dark horses. I've got Belmont. I really like Belmont. I've said it
as a dark horse
times.
To win it, or a Cinderella story?
Cinderella story.
Okay.
Oh, a dark horse to win the whole thing?
Yeah, or get to the Final Four. I'm talking about teams that aren't predicted to be there, but that could be.
Well, let's start off with how many 1 seeds do you think will make the Final Four? Obviously, we both haven't done our brackets yet, but just quick glancing at the bracket, how many 1 seeds do you think are going to be in?
I think 2 of the 4
I've got
will
2.
make it. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know which 2, but I think 2 will be there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've got Belmont as a Cinderella story. Another Cinderella story I could see happening is Liberty. I don't know. Mississippi State is not too bad of a ball team either, so I think whichever team wins that game, who knows. But they've also got Virginia Tech in the second round, so we'll see. I like Buffalo. I don't know how much of a Cinderella story that would be, considering they're the 6th seed.
Yeah.
But teams that are not 1, 2, or 3 that I could see making the Final Four, absolutely Florida State. We were raving about them earlier. I definitely like the way they play. Virginia Tech, Auburn. Kansas State. I like all of those teams. Definitely have a chance.
So we definitely have some of the same dark horses. Florida State, without a doubt. Justin Robinson, like I said, back for Virginia Tech, without a doubt. Auburn, like you said, they've won 10 of their last 11, 2 against Tennessee. They're hot, man. But one more team that I followed closely all year that I think if an offensive team can do it, it's this team, Marquette. I could see Marcus.
The brothers.
Yeah, the Hauser bros from 3. I could see Marcus Howard putting together a Kimball Walker-esque run for his team with how prolific he is on the offensive end. But Cinderella's, I'm right there with you with Liberty. They're a really good shooting team. Scotty James is a problem in the paint. Murray State with John Morant. I mean, he is an absolute freak. He's going to be a top 3-5 pick.
Absolutely.
But Murray State as a team hasn't lost since January 31st.
But they're playing your boys. They're playing Marquette.
Oh, I know they are.
So it's going to be – that's the game to watch in the first round.
Yeah. I'm going to have a tough time picking that game. And then my last one is Yale. Man, they are a high-octane offense. Watch out for them. Coach K has raved about one of their players being a lottery pick. Yale can score the basketball, and they're smart, and they know how to put it in. They've calculated that formula, the rise over run formula, to make sure that basket goes in the hoop.
Yeah, so – of course, I got to mention my Buckeyes sneaked in another time. Obviously, we all knew they were going to go to the tournament just with a higher seed. They play Iowa State. I like them over Iowa State in the first round.
I don't, not because I have anything against Ohio State. I do in football. I could care less about them in basketball. Yeah. Iowa State's a really good offensive team. Just beat Kansas. Yeah, Kansas is without two of their stars. I think watch out for Kansas getting a real early boot from the tournament. They're without Ezebuke and LeGerald Vick. But anyways, I think Iowa State will win. No bias towards Ohio State on my end.
Yeah,
but
sure.
It should be a good game.
Yeah, sure. It's another game to watch in the first round. But the team I think that's going to come out of the not the Midwest region, but a team that definitely could come. Excuse me. I think Houston is going to go to the Sweet 16. They've been playing very well. Yes, they lost to Cincinnati, but so what? I think they have an easy road, I would say. One of the easier roads in the tournament. They'd have to beat Georgia State. Then they'd beat the winner of Iowa State, Ohio State. Then I could see Houston upsetting Kentucky in the Sweet 16. I could see it. I'm not saying I'm putting it, but I could see it.
Well, listen, I'm not going to give any of my predictions here. But that leads us to the perfect time to talk about the Specialist Tournament Challenge. So, guys, what we are going to be doing is we are going to be having an ESPN it's going to be on ESPN. It's a tournament challenge.
It's already open.
Okay? The name of the group, and we're going to be putting this out on social media so you guys know exactly how to get there. It's just called on ESPN, the Specialist Challenge. Okay? And what it's going to be like. So it's $5 per entry. We are allowing at max 2 entries. Okay? You have to pay 24 hours after your entry. And how we're accepting cash is through Venmo, Cash App, or Apple Pay, or like we said, cash. But if you're going to be using cash, you have got to DM us and tell us, and so we can figure out a time to get together. Me and Matt will be participating.
We're going to both have 2 entries.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
2 entries. Yeah, max 2 entries. We're going to be collecting the pot. The winner, second place will get their money back, and first place will take home the rest of the money.
And the best part is the first place will have a guest slot on one of our upcoming episodes. So I know all of our friends have like, when can be on the podcast? When can be on the podcast? Well, you can be on the podcast first if you enter in and win it.
Yeah, and I hate to say this, but after I win,
second place,
whoever comes closest,
which will be me, and then the third place will be on the show.
Yeah, whoever comes highest, whether it's me, not me or Matt above you, whoever finishes the highest, not named Matt Gott or Coleman Bazin, will be on the podcast, and they will receive a hefty prize, because I know a lot of people have told me they're going to be doing this thing just at $5 an entry. So real excited for it. You've got till Thursday at noon.
Yep.
And like I said, we will be posting on social media so you know how to find it.
Also, it's already $20 in the pot because both Coleman and I are entering too, like I said just a couple seconds ago. So just tell your friends, because it's only a $5 entry. It's super cheap.
Literally $5.
I mean,
you don't even have to know about basketball.
Yeah, you got 2 random entries. I mean, do whatever you can, but the more people you tell about this, is there a max on this?
There's no max.
Yeah, there's no max. The more people to tell, the more money you have a chance to win.
And it's public, so for those of you who think you can slick one by us, we are going to be keeping up with everybody who enters and the money. If you have not paid within 24 hours, we will remove you from the entire tournament.
Yeah.
The pool of contestants, and if you end up paying us, we'll let you come back in without a problem. But
yeah, just pay us, and just pay us before you come in. That'd be easier on us. But another thing about that is, if you are entering into the challenge, yes, your ESPN username might be something dumb, but just DM us and tell us, hey, I really want to do it. So we're aware, and it's all good because we want to make this as smooth and as fun as possible.
Yeah, without a doubt. But another money maker, Matt, we got merch.
Yes, we do have merch. We just contacted our wonderful merch lady.
Mary Ellen.
Yeah, Mary Ellen.
Wow.
Shout out to Luke Butler Vlogs for the reference. He used his hoodies for them. Our hoodies are going to be very premium, though. They're going to be nice. We're going to be selling them for $30, and we are making very to little profit because these hoodies that we're buying aren't cheap, and they are very nice quality, like very, very nice quality, very comfortable.
No shipping fees, none of that. It's going to be $30 straight up. You got a 20, you got 2 5s, you got a 20, you got a 10.
So DM us, and again, PayPal, in person, the same paying options that you can do for the tournament challenge. Just do both. Give us give us $40, and you're in the tournament challenge and a hoodie. The hoodies are going to be sick. They're white. They've got the Specialist Podcast logo. Like I said, they're super comfortable, super awesome. Because I know a lot of you guys have been complaining and whining about when are the hoodies coming in. Well, here the hoodies are coming in. So
yeah, right.
Another shout out to Cody Garvin for designing all of our logos.
Yeah, huge shout out to Cody Garvin. Well, guys, that's all we got for you here for episode 9. Thank you so much for listening. Very happy to still be a part of this thing 9 episodes in. Don't forget merch, money, bracket challenge money. Get on this thing, and let's enjoy the ride.
Yeah, it was a great episode 9. We feel like it was definitely one of our best, and we're just going to continue to get better. Thank you so much for listening. Please, again, come into the challenge. It's going to be lots of fun, and get a hoodie so the whole Charlotte world can see what's going on. Peace out, Specialist Podcast fans and listeners. Have a good one.